Please, Your Majesty. My family needs me to do this, they need the money, or we aren't going to survive this winter. As much as it pained her to rely on someone so heavily, she didn't have a choice, and deep down she knew she was making the right decision, even if it was the trickiest decision she had ever had to make. She was intelligent and tactile enough to make it in the royal army, and what she lacked in strength she made up for in speed and passion. Only the shrewd observations of the young crown prince had gotten her into this currently sticky situation. Yes, she was a female. A young woman that had gotten away with pretending to be a man for months as she went through the various trials to be offered a position in the king's army. Thanks to growing up on the kingdom's rough and practically lawless streets, she had developed the skills to survive in most circumstances, even if those circumstances were based around fighting on the behalf of a ruler who had done nothing to help the thousands that lived in poverty within their very kingdom. Of course, the fact that she had never properly reached puberty due to malnutrition had probably been the main reason behind her getting away with her charade for so many months. It was only when the eagle-eyed prince came to visit the final candidates to join his legendary army, it was only then that Lena knew her gig was up. Well, she assumed it was anyway. The prince, Prince Andrew, barely older than her 22 years, was staring at her thoughtfully, his dark eyes giving nothing away as his careful emotionless facade remained cemented in place. They were seated in one of the many meeting rooms of the royal palace, the prince having led her there under the guise of interviewing each applicant. Pray tell me why a young, seemingly sensible woman would risk her own life to fight for a kingdom who would have to imprison her for treason if, when they found out her true nature. Swallowing awkwardly, Lena said nothing as she ran a slightly shaking hand through her buzz cut, the chestnut-colored fronds beginning to curl slightly as her once-shaved head started to outgrow. Maybe she could pretend for a second that it was this that gave her gender away, and not the nurse who had been easing her back to health after a nasty concussion a few days before. Boxing with people almost triple her 5'0" stature was never a good idea, but it was worth it. The longer she stayed in the trials and training, hopefully eventually gaining an esteemed position in the royal army, the longer she stayed, the more money that she could send back to her family and slowly but surely ease them out of poverty. I know who you are, Layla Adjuk. I know you are 22 years old and are the third out of 8 children to Samantha and Sebastian Adjuk, both street merchants. I know you live downtown in one of the poorest regions, and yet you still want to serve on behalf of your sovereign, who has let you live in these atrocious conditions for your whole life. I know you send all your money home instead of blowing it on cheap liquor and women like the other contestants for a position in my army do every payday. I also know, thanks to a concerned nurse, that you are a young woman who is definitely not in the best of health thanks to your poor upbringing as well as the hundreds of injuries you have sustained from the trials and training you have gone through in these last couple of months. Layla gulped at this, rubbing her rough and calloused palms together as she fought to keep her face calm. She was going to jail, she just knew it. She was going to be imprisoned for treason, for fooling the crown, for fooling herself really. I just wanted to create a better life for my siblings. They deserve a better quality of life. That's up to me. The money I make here, it's the fastest way to get them funds and the most legal way as well, Your Majesty. She stammered out quickly as she wiped her sweaty palms on the baggy hospital tunic she was wearing, the pale scratchy fabric squeaking loudly in the painfully silent room. Outside the palace, the loud chatterings and shouts of the town's happy hour drifted through the large open bay windows of the room as the soft light of the sunset bathed the room in golden tendrils. You are strong, both of mind, body and spirit. You are especially strong of heart. Which is why we are going to ignore your slight act of treason, and instead focus on how you can help me. You will be a part of my father's army, of my army Layla. Thanks to your vast array of talents, I have decided that you will be my personal assistant. This way you can help your family, you will not get hurt unnecessarily, and I will get my father off my back about getting my life organized and in order. Is that clear? He questioned, looking at her firmly, yet kindly as the weight of his words settled within her, and she found herself nodding enthusiastically before her mind had a chance to catch up. Excellent, I shall get the paperwork sorted. Have a pleasant evening, Miss Layla Adjuk. I look forward to working with you. 20 minutes later, as Layla was still sitting in mute shock in the interview room, Prince Andrew, was standing upright before his father's throne, nodding in response to his father's question regarding the state of his son's search for a decent personal assistant. "Yes, my king, I have found the right woman for the job." He nodded curtly towards the white-haired, stern-looking man seated at the throne before him. The young prince's thoughts drifting towards a chestnut-haired young woman with the most intelligent olive-shaded eyes he had ever seen. "Son, are you listening to me?" I asked. "Where did you find her?" "I inquired at the local university. She is a brilliant young woman, studying business." The ease at which the lies fell out of his mouth had him slightly concerned, yet not enough to feel guilty. What was done was done. Besides, Layla intrigued him, and he wanted to know more.